Hello, in this video you're going to be learning how to make these fingerless crochet gloves. Hello and welcome. I'm going to teach you how to make these crochet gloves. They're very easy to make, and I actually found the pattern in a vintage magazine, so unfortunately I cannot claim the pattern for myself as much as I'd like to, but they're very easy to make, so if you're a beginner they're perfect. They're made up of single crochets, which is a very easy stitch to master. So once you've got down the single crochet, you can make these very quickly, in about half an hour in fact, per glove. So all you'll need for this is a couple balls of yarn, a 4mm crochet hook, and an embroidery needle to sew in all the loose ends. One more thing before we begin is, if you're making these for kids, or you've got bigger hands, or you want the gloves to finish like up your arm a bit more, you can measure from your knuckle down to where you want your gloves to finish and make a starting chain of that length. If you're confused, I'll explain a little bit more later. And if you've got smaller hands, perhaps for a child, you can measure around the circumference of your hands. But these are pretty standard size. I sell these in the shop and I've never had complaints about it being too tight, because they're ribbed, so they stretch a bit. So they're pretty good for any size. Yeah, and that's everything. I'm not going to waffle anymore, I'm just going to teach you how to make these gloves. So I know I'm jumping a little bit far ahead here, but I want to do a little breakdown so we're all on the same page. So here you can see the finished glove before it's been sewn together, and it's made up of 28 single crochet rows. Although it doesn't look like it, it's a very stretchy bit of material and it should fit round your hands very well. If you did want to add more rows, if you've got larger hands, or do less rows if you're making for a child, or if you had smaller hands, then that's perfectly fine as well. So let's go straight in on how to start the glove. So you're going to want to start off by doing a standard slip knot. If you struggle with this, which I did when I started crocheting, I've got a video on how to make a slip knot on my channel if you'd like to visit that. So once you've made your slip knot, insert your 4mm crochet hook and begin making chains. If you've never made a chain before, it's very simple, don't panic. So you yarn over, pull the yarn through the loop on your hook, and that's a chain. So that's 1, 2, yarn over again, 3, and it's just as simple as that. So yarning over, pulling through that loop, and that equals 1 chain. We're going to be doing this 40 times. If you wanted to make your gloves longer or shorter, you can do less or more chains. If you were wanting to make your own bespoke glove, I'd recommend getting a tape measure and measuring where you wanted your glove to start and finish, like I was talking about in the introduction. It's not necessary, but if you do, please make sure that you are doing exactly what we're doing now, but just adding your amount of chains. So now we've made our chain of 40, you should be seeing something like this. I've held it up to my wrist and you can see it goes from my knuckle down to where I want my glove to end. So after we've made our chain of 40, we're going to chain 2 on top of that. This will count as a single crochet. We are going to be making single crochets all along this row, but before we can do that, I'm going to have to teach you how. So that chain 2 you've just made, you're going to count the 2 chains, and into that third one here, you're going to insert your hook into that top loop. As you can see, there's 2 loops, and we're just going to push our hook through that top one. The reason we're working into the top one is so we can create that nice ribbed effect on your glove. So insert your hook, and then we're going to want to yarn over by taking that yarn and pulling it through the loop, just like so. Once you've done that, you should have 2 loops on your hook, just like this. So you count 1, 2. You're then going to yarn over again, pull through both of them loops, and that is how to do a single crochet. And don't worry, this is the only bit of the video in slow motion. So we're going to continue doing it by inserting your hook into the top loop, yarning over, pulling through this, so there's 2 loops on your hook, pulling through them 2 loops. So next one, insert your hook, yarn over, pull through, so there's 2 loops on your hook, yarning over again, pulling through them 2 loops. And you're going to want to make sure the chain isn't tangling at this point, so you don't want to get warped gloves, so make sure it's not twisted. So insert your hook, pull through, so there's 2 loops, pull through them 2 loops. And you're just going to want to continue doing this all the way down the first row. So I'm going to meet you at the very end, just before you've made your final single crochet stitch. So now we're at the very end, you should see something like this, and you're going to go ahead and place your last single crochet stitch of this row. So once you've done that, you're going to chain 2, 1, 2, and flip your work around just like so. And we're now going to be working into this side. So it's exactly the same as what we've done last time. The chain 2 at the beginning does count as a single crochet stitch, and we're going to be working into that very first top loop. So just like you were doing before, making single crochets all along this row. Just a quick recap if you've forgotten. So you're going to insert your hook into that top loop, yarn over and pull through 2. And you're just going to want to continue doing exactly what you've done all the way down this row. And just like before, I'm going to meet you at the very end, just before your last single crochet stitch in this row. Okay, so now at the very end, you're going to want to finish that final single crochet stitch. You should see something like this at the very end. And chain 1 and 2. Do what you did before, flip your work, and into that very first stitch next to your hook, insert your hook into that top loop. So this one here, insert your hook and make a single crochet. And you're going to want to continue doing exactly what you did all along this row. So single crochets into every single top loop. And you're going to want to do this for around 28 rows. There's nothing more to it. The only advice I can give you is just make sure that you're working into the top loops and make sure that your gloves aren't warped, because perhaps your chain at the beginning got a bit tangled. So you just want to make sure that your glove isn't twisted at all. Other than that, just continue doing exactly what you've just been doing. So here's what you should be seeing after around 4 rows. It's a very stretchy bit of material, not only because of the yarn that I've been using, which is a merino wool, but because we've been working into the top loops and made ribbing, which is very stretchy in itself. The reason we've done this is so it stretches very nicely around your hands. Another thing is every 2 rows makes one of them ridges that you can see here. So we're going to have about 14 ridges altogether, which is 28 rows. So jumping straight to the very end, this is what 14 ridges look like, or 28 rows. So you could just count them like so. So each little bump, that is 2 rows. And you should count around 14 altogether. And it will wrap nicely around your hand. If you do want less or more, you could always add more rows, or you can take some away depending on the size of your hands. Now we're going to be stitching them together. So what you're going to do is get your embroidery needle and measure about 12 inches of yarn and cut it with your scissors. You're then going to find one of the ends and insert your hook into the end and create just a standard knot to tie the yarn in place. Once you've done this, turn your work so it's flat and find the exact same stitch on the opposite side and insert your embroidery needle and pull the yarn through, just like so. You want to make sure that the exact same stitches on both sides so the bottom of the gloves align. You're then going to want to find 2 loops on the opposite side, insert your embroidery needle from underneath and pull up. And that's your first stitch. Do the exact same on the opposite side, so go through both of the loops and start threading your yarn through. So under, through both of the loops on the opposite side, pull your needle up and go onto the other side, locate the next stitch, go through both of them loops and pull the needle up. And it's very important to remember to go from underneath and up rather than from over and up. It just makes it look a bit neater and a little bit more professional. So you're going to want to do this until you reach the opening where your thumb should be. For everyone it might be a little bit different, but I will meet you at the end when you've sewn up to where your thumb will come out. So now we're here. I've sewn up to around 2.5 inches down. That's where my thumbs come out. We're then going to want to stop what we're doing, don't finish anything yet because it's just an estimate, and try the glove on. It's so important to try the glove on so you know how it fits and you know if it's too tight or if you know if the thumb hole's in the right place. So trying it on, just see where you want the tops to line up and see if the thumb hole's nice and comfortable. And if it is, you're ready to start sewing the top of your glove. So remove your glove, get another bit of yarn, around 6 inches, cut it with your scissors ideally, thread your embroidery needle and do exactly what you've just been doing, but just on the top half of your glove. So we're now going to be working from the top half of your glove to the top of the opening of your thumb hole. So like we started the other one, insert your embroidery needle into the end of the glove and tie it with just a standard knot. Once you've done that, you're going to find the exact stitch on the opposite side and insert your embroidery needle into that stitch. Pull it through. So we're now going to be doing exactly what we did by inserting the yarn through both of the loops onto the opposite sides, and you're going to do this all the way down until the thumb opening. Now, it's so important for you to try your glove on at this point so you know if it fits nice and comfortably and you know whether to add more stitches or take some away. But this is what you should be seeing at this point in the process. Now all you have to do is tie in the loose ends.